Good evening and welcome back to another episode of The Longing, where today we are going to be continuing to read the book. How have I forgotten the name of the book? The Golden Age by Kenneth Grahame, that's it. Ugh, my brain. Anyway, let's get going. At breakfast, Miss Smedley behaved in a most mean and uncalled-for manner. The right divine of governesses to govern wrong includes no right to cry. In thus usurping the prerogative of their victims, they ignore the rules of the ring and hit below the belt. Charlotte was crying, of course, but that counted for nothing. Charlotte even cried when the pigs' noses were ringed in due season, thereby evoking the cheery contempt of the operators, who asserted they liked it, and doubtless knew. But when the cloud compeller, her bolts laid aside, resorted to tears, mutinous humanity had a right to feel aggrieved, and placed in a false and difficult position. What would the Romans have done, supposing Hannibal had cried? History has not even considered the possibility. Rules and precedents should be strictly observed on both sides. When they are violated, the other party is justified in feeling injured. There were no lessons that morning, naturally, another grievance. The fitness of things required that we should have struggled to the last in a confused medley of moods and tenses, and parted forever, flushed with hatred, over the dismembered corpse of the multiplication table. But this thing was not to be, and I was free to stroll by myself through the garden, and combat as best I might this growing feeling of depression. It was a wrong system altogether, I thought, this going of people one had got used to. Things ought always to continue as they had been. Change there must be, of course. Pigs, for instance, came and went with disturbing frequency. Fired their ringing shot and passed, hotly charged and sank at last. But nature had ordered it so, and in requital had provided for rapid successes. Did you come to love a pig, and he was taken from you, grief was quickly assuaged in the delight of selection from the new litter. But now, when it was no question of a peerless pig, but only of a governess, nature seemed helpless, and the future held no litter of oblivion. Things might be better, or they might be worse, but they would never be the same, and the innate conservatism of youth asks neither poverty nor riches, but only immunity from change. Edward slouched up alongside of me presently, with a hand-dogged look on him, as if he had been caught stealing jam. "What a lark it'll be when she's really gone," he observed, with a swagger obviously assumed. "Grand fun," I replied dolorously, and conversation flagged. We reached the hen-house and contemplated the banner of freedom flying, ready to flaunt the breezes at the supreme moment. "Shall you run it up," I asked, "when the fly starts, or wait a little till it's out of sight?" Edward gazed around him dubiously. "We're going to have some rain, I think," he said, and it's a new flag. It would be a pity to spoil it. Perhaps I won't run it up at all." Harold came round the corner like a bison pursued by Indians. "I've polished up the cannons," he cried, "and they look grand. Mayn't I load 'em now?" "You leave 'em alone," said Edward severely, "or you'll be blowing yourself up." Consideration for others was not usually Edward's strong point. "Don't touch the gunpowder till you're told, or you'll get your head smacked." Harold fell behind, limp, squashed, obedient. "She wants me to write to her," he began presently. "Say she doesn't mind the spelling. I'll only write." Fancy her saying that. "Oh, shut up, will you?" said Edward savagely, and once more we were silent, with only our thoughts for sorry company. "Let's go off to the copse," I suggested timidly, feeling that something had to be done to relieve the tension, "and cut more new bows and arrows. She gave me a knife my last birthday, said Edward, moodily, never budging. It wasn't much of a knife, but I wish I hadn't lost it. When my legs used to ache, I said, she sat up half the night rubbing stuff on them. I forgot all about that till this morning. There's the fly, cried Harold suddenly. I can hear it scrunching on the gravel. Then, for the first time, we turned and stared one another in the face. The fly and its contents had finally disappeared through the gate. The rumble of its wheels had died away, and no flag floated defiantly in the sun. No cannons proclaimed the passing of a dynasty. From out the frosted cake of our existence, fate had cut an irreplaceable segment. Turn which way we would, the void was present. We sneaked off in different directions, mutually undesirous of company, and it seemed borne in upon me that I ought to go and dig my garden right over, from end to end. It didn't actually want digging. On the other hand, no amount of digging could affect it, for good or for evil. So I worked steadily, strenuously, under the hot sun, stifling through inaction. At the end of an hour or so, I was joined by Edward. I've been chopping up wood, he explained in a guilty sort of way, though nobody had called on him to account for his doings. What for? I inquired stupidly. There's piles and piles of it chopped up already. I know, said Edward, but there's no harm in having a bit over. You never can tell what may happen. But what have you been doing all this digging for? You said it was going to rain, I explained hastily, so I thought I'd get the digging done before it came. Good gardeners always tell you that's the right thing to do. It did look like rain at one time, Edward admitted, but it's passed off now. Very queer weather we're having. I suppose that's why I felt so funny all day. Yes, I suppose it's the weather, I replied. I've been feeling funny too. The weather had nothing to do with it, as we well knew, but we would both have died rather than have admitted the real reason. The Blue Room. That nature has her moments of sympathy with man has been noted often enough, and generally as a new discovery. To us, who had never known any other condition of things, it seemed entirely right and fitting that the wind sang and sobbed in the poplar tops, and in the lulls of it sudden spirits of rain spattered the already dusty roads on that blusterous March day when Edward and I awaited, on the station platform, the arrival of the new tutor. Needless to say, this arrangement had been planned by an aunt, from some fond idea that our shy, innocent young natures would unfold themselves during the walk from the station, and that on the revelation of each other's more solid qualities that must then inevitably ensue, an enduring friendship springing from mutual respect might be firmly based. A pretty dream, nothing more. For Edward, who foresaw that the brunt of tutorial oppression would have to be borne by him, was sulky, monosyllabic, and determined to be as negatively disagreeable as good manners would permit. It was therefore evident that I would have to be spokesman and purveyor of hollow civilities, and I was none the more amiable on that account. All courtesies, welcomes, explanations, and other court chamberlain kind of business being my special aversion. There was much of the tempestuous March weather in the hearts of both of us, and we sullenly glowered along the carriage windows of the slackening train. Excuse me, and with that we come to the end of the episode, which is very rapidly coming to the end of the book as it happens. So I think we are just going to go straight into the Iliad after this one. We're going to have to reverse time quite a bit between this book and the Iliad, just because we are getting a little bit low and I don't particularly want to run out. But anyway, I will say thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night. No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of The Longing. Goodbye.